This is Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa. The story of resurgent and burgeoning Africa is here, only on the Pulse of Africa channel. Pulse of Africa, the face and voice of Africa.
Hello and welcome. I'm Tensai Gabiao bringing you tonight's news. Stay with us for the latest stories shaping our region and the world beyond. South Africa reaffirms Africa-centered G20 agenda. South Africa reaffirmed its commitment to advancing Africa's development agenda during the G20 Africa High-Level Dialogue on Debt Sustainability, Cost of Capital, and Financing Reforms held on Monday at the African Union headquarters in Addis Ababa. In an interview with Pulse of Africa, Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation in South Africa said the event reflects South Africa's pledge made during the AU summit in February to ensure that its G20 presidency serves as an African presidency focused on solidarity, equality, and sustainability. The discussions strike at the heartbeat of reforming the international financial and economic architecture, both said, noting that the dialogue focused on key issues such as Africa's high debt burden, the cost of capital, and progress toward the Sustainable Development Goals.
So when you look at the high debt burden, the immediate priority will be the review of cost of capital, the rate at which, in particular, African nations that are highly indebted continue to access capital from your multilateral development banks, such as your IMF and your World Bank. Of course, today we had concomitant discussions on your special drawing rights, your SDRs, as it relates to us looking at how best to implement special drawing rights for countries, especially your LDCs, economies that are very low income developing countries, to enable them then to meet your sustainable development goals by 2030.
He highlighted the importance of reassessing credit rating systems and strengthening cooperation between the African Peer Review Mechanism and the AU's emerging Pan-African Credit Rating Agency. The goal, he explained, is to ensure that African nations can access financing on fairer and more sustainable terms. Addressing the continent's high debt burden, both called for a review of borrowing costs for African nations from multilateral institutions such as the IMF and the World Bank. He also emphasized the need for fairer allocation and use of special drawing rights to support least developed and low-income countries in achieving their SDGs by 2030. On sustainability, both underscored the importance of infrastructure and renewable energy investments, noting that discussions in Addis Ababa will inform upcoming events such as the Future Leaders Summit in South Africa and the AU-EU engagements in Rwanda and Angola. The aim is to renew G20 members' commitment to solidarity and harness sustainability opportunities for a more equal and resilient Africa, he said. Both further outlined 4 strategic priorities under South Africa's G20 presidency: debt resilience for low-income countries, disaster risk reduction and resilience, inclusive economic growth and industrialization, and harnessing artificial intelligence and data governance as drivers of Africa's industrial future.
I think ultimately we are looking at disaster reduction, disaster and resilience. We are looking at the consequent outcome of inclusive economic growth and industrialization. We are looking at the matter about debt resilience of low-income countries. And of course, the 4th strategic priorities look at artificial intelligence, including data governance, as a catalyst for Africa's own industrialization.
He concluded that these efforts will ensure Africa's voice remains central in shaping global economic governance and sustainable growth. Ethiopia reaffirms commitment to regional integration in the Horn of Africa. Ethiopia has reiterated its commitment to fostering regional integration and cooperation in the Horn of Africa, a region described as being blessed with abundant natural resources, a youthful population, hardworking citizens, and a strategic location. Speaking on the matter, Foreign Minister of Ethiopia, Gideon Timotheos, emphasized that if countries on the Horn of Africa collectively harness their resources and harmonize priorities, the region could emerge as a powerful engine of growth.
The Horn is a region blessed with abundant natural resources, enterprising and hardworking people, a useful population, and a strategic location along a major global trade route. If the countries of the Horn pool their resources together, align their priorities, and harmonize their policies in a way that fosters economic integration, the region could become an engine for growth for the entire African continent.
Gideon noted Ethiopia's unique position as a nation with the largest population in the Horn and borders with all countries in the region. He stressed that Ethiopia is determined to play its part in advancing development and stability. However, he cautioned that the Horn must establish its own strategic autonomy, warning that without it, the region risks becoming a playground for external actors.
Unless countries of the region follow policies dictated by their own national interests, it will not be possible to realize the agenda of economic integration. Some countries outside of the Horn want to see the region as their backyard.
The minister underscored the importance of respecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of each state, highlighting Ethiopia's long-term policy objective of building a well-functioning and robust regional framework. He added that Ethiopia is keen to contribute to integration efforts grounded in trust and confidence. Gideon also addressed Ethiopia's legitimate quest for maritime access, underlining that the country seeks durable and secure access to the sea through regional cooperation and integration. Ivory Coast president calls for national unity after re-election. Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara chaired his first cabinet meeting following the proclamation of the final results of the October 25, 2025 presidential election, which secured his re-election for a fourth five-year term. Addressing his cabinet, Ouattara expressed his gratitude for the mandate and a collective effort behind his victory. It is with great pleasure that I meet you this morning after the presidential election of October 25, 2025, the results of which reflect the trust and support of the Ivorian people for our collective action, the president stated. The head of state stressed the importance of constitutional adherence and the successful execution of the vote. It is with great humility and profound gratitude that I accepted the decision of our fellow citizens to renew their confidence in me, he said, extending his thanks for the remarkable contribution of his government. He commended the government, the institutions of the Republic, and all stakeholders in the electoral process for ensuring the elections were held on the constitutionally mandated date and in a climate of peace and security. Ouattara proudly noted that respect for constitutional provisions further strengthens the credibility of our institutions and the foundation of our democracy. He also thanked the prefectural authorities, traditional leaders, religious leaders, civil society actors, and defense and security forces for their significant role in preserving peace and national cohesion, praising the professionalism demonstrated by the security forces during the period. Despite the overall peaceful process, the president acknowledged the human cost associated with the electoral period. Despite the efforts and guidance and awareness raising, we unfortunately recorded some loss of life, he noted. I bow before the memory of our compatriots who tragically lost their lives. These are far too many human losses, reminding us how precious peace and national cohesion remain, assets that it is all up to all of us to preserve. Rwandan government to build nearly 300 homes for genocide survivors. The Rwandan government said that it plans to build 296 new homes to house vulnerable survivors of the 1994 genocide. Over the course of 100 days in that year, 1 million Tutsis and moderate Hutus were killed. Thousands of survivors still live in torment, haunted by memories of that period, during which as many as 10,000 people were killed daily and sexual violence was used as a weapon of war. Kigali said it has set aside nearly $3.5 million for the houses which will be built in the 2025 to 2026 fiscal year. The government said it also is exploring what it described as unconventional construction methods to reduce costs without compromising quality. This would include community participation, with residents contributing locally available material and labor. Once the method is approved, it is said it will help with the completion of the remaining 6,973 houses needed by survivors. Officials say beneficiaries will also receive psychological and social support before and after relocation. The Minister of National Unity and Civic Engagement said, however, that from now on, survivors will no longer be treated as a separate category. Instead, they will be included in the National Housing Framework alongside other vulnerable Rwandans. Presidents Mnangagwa and Hichilema to co-chair inaugural Zimbabwe-Zambia Binational Commission. Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema has arrived in Harare for the inaugural Zimbabwe-Zambia Binational Commission. President Hichilema and President Mnangagwa will co-chair the inaugural Zimbabwe-Zambia BNC, marking the upgrading of relations from the long-standing Joint Permanent Commission on Cooperation. The milestone event also coincides with the 45th anniversary of diplomatic relations between the neighboring countries, a partnership rooted in a shared struggle for independence and decades of political, social, and economic collaboration. In preparation for the heads of state meeting, ministerial and senior officials sessions have been underway in Harare over the past 2 days, laying the groundwork for strengthened cooperation across multiple sectors. Democratic Republic of Congo produces first 1,000 tons of traceable artisanal cobalt. The Democratic Republic of Congo State Cobalt Agency has produced its first 1,000 metric tons of traceable artisanal cobalt. It is a critical component in rechargeable lithium-ion batteries used in electric vehicles, smartphones, and laptops, making it central to the transition to green energy. The DRC is a dominant source of the mineral, holding about 72% of global cobalt reserves and accounting for over 74% of supply. But the sector is dominated by informal artisanal mines employing an estimated 1.5 million people and is largely unregulated. This has resulted in widespread unethical practices, including human rights abuses and environmental degradation. The International Energy Agency forecasts that the global cobalt demand will increase 40% by 2030. However, car manufacturers and electronic firms increasingly require proof of ethical sourcing, putting pressure on producers to eliminate child labor and unsafe practices. The DRC's announcement that it's produced traceable artisanal cobalt is therefore a key step in meeting these concerns by moving towards formalizing the sector. The enterprise Journal du Cobalt Agency says traceability will clean up the supply chain and align production with international environmental, social, and governance standards. Now to business news. Senegal tightens gold control against smuggling. Faced with massive illegal gold exports that have drained billions from the national economy, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has directed his government to assert greater state control over the precarious metal, labeling the move as a sovereign imperative. Following the Council of Ministers meeting, the head of state instructed the Minister of Mines to prioritize the optimal exploitation of national gold resources by ensuring the effective establishment of the National Gold Trading Center. This injunction comes as a response to the massive financial hemorrhage. A study by the Swiss NGO Swiss Aid, published in October 2024, revealed that between 2013 and 2022, approximately 36 to 41 tons of gold were illegally smuggled out of Senegal, costing the country an estimated $2.38 to $2.71 billion over the decade. The Swiss Aid report points to artisanal and small-scale mining as the primary source of the undeclared flow. The gold largely transits through neighboring Mali before ultimately reaching the United Arab Emirates. The proximity of the Kidougou region to the Malian border facilitates transaction with independent Malian buyers who offer more attractive prices than the trading posts authorized by the Senegalese state. According to the industry sources, as little as 10% of artisanal gold passes through state-approved buying offices. This massive divergence is compounded by a controversial decision in 2018 to introduce a 4% import tax on gold, one of the highest in the sub-region, which is believed to have pushed more gold into the informal market. While industrial gold production reached 14.9 tons in 2022, artisanal mining, estimated at 4 to 4.5 tons annually, remains largely unreported. Gold is currently Senegal's main mining output, with exports reaching 137.22 billion CFA francs in the first half of 2024, representing nearly 30% of the total extractive sector exports. Beyond establishing the National Gold Trading Center, President Faye outlined a broader commitment to strengthening governance and maximizing local benefits from mineral wealth. He reaffirmed his dedication to the sustainable territorial development of mining areas by reminding the government of the need to efficiently activate the Mining Rehabilitation Fund and the Local Authorities Development Fund. Other key directives issued by the president include emphasizing the importance of strengthening the local processing of mineral resources and consolidating a dynamic mining industry as a spreadhead of Senegal's industry strategy. The African Development Bank applauds Zimbabwe's economic reforms and growth momentum. The African Development Bank has commended the government for implementing robust economic reforms that have fostered a conducive environment for investment and sustained economic growth. The African Development Bank Executive Director for the Southern Africa Group Second Constituency, Dr. Eugenio Maria Paulo, made the remarks after paying a courtesy call on the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Trade Professor Amon Maurira in Harare. Dr. Paulo highlighted that the ongoing reforms have positioned Zimbabwe among the region's fastest growing economies. Our discussions focused on strengthening bilateral cooperation. We had fruitful engagements and identified areas that can help take the nation forward. The bank remains optimistic about Zimbabwe's economic prospects and continues to applaud government efforts to consolidate growth and enhance confidence across key productive sectors, he said. That's all from POA News for the hour. Thank you for joining us and stay tuned for more updates from Africa.